Today we take a closer look at Atelier Wen's latest release, the Perception. Between the integrated bracelet and the handcrafted Guilloché dial, there is a lot to talk about here. Atelier Wen explores Chinese culture and craftsmanship in watchmaking, and they want to make that accessible to everyone around the world. Now, their first series, the Porcelain Odyssey, was released a few years ago and featured a dashing porcelain dial. Now we are looking at the new Perception, which quite frankly is several steps above what we have seen so far from Atelier Wen. The first impression here is immediately positive, so the Perception features a handmade Guilloché dial, 904L stainless steel case and integrated bracelet, a customized extra thin movement, a semi-display caseback and a clasp with a very easy to use micro adjustment. So there is a lot to talk about here, so without further delay, let's have a closer look. Now, the overall design of the Perception is guided by key Chinese architectural principles. So the design continuity really shows throughout all elements of this watch, and the result is really quite something. Now let's dive straight into the dial. So it's easy to focus purely on the Guilloché here, of course, but the dial also has other interesting details that are not as obvious to the eye. You have not just one, but 4 different layers that blend neatly into each other. So the base dial is copper, on which then sit 2 additional layers, one which is 0.5 millimeters thick and the other which is 0.4 millimeters thick. So both dials have 12 cutouts that are for the raised indices, which then fit into the cutouts very nicely. The leaf-shaped hands then, filled with superluminova, will be a familiar sight to anyone having seen the Porcelain Odyssey, I would think. So the dial exists in a few color variations. The one we are looking at here is the grey dial. The Guilloché dial is handcrafted by a Guilloché master craftsman in China. So Atelier Wen highlights that it takes around 8 hours to make each dial. As a result of all those hours, you get a visually very pleasing dial here. So the pattern definitely has a lot of character and reminds me of a dragon scale pattern. Very cool, and I love how Guilloché dials change depending on how the light hits them. A nice Guilloché dial is always a thing of beauty. Now moving to the very interesting case, so let me start by mentioning that it's nice and thin at just 9.4 millimeters. So this includes the caseback and crystal. Absolutely excellent. The case, just like the bracelet, is made of 904L stainless steel, and the shape again takes inspiration from different Chinese architectural elements. The curved sides and lugs are inspired by the silhouettes of Chinese pagodas and roof structures. So the case features a mix of polished and both horizontal and vertical brushing. The polished bevels then around the case and lugs, which actually continue along the bracelet here, add for a very nice touch, and to me it really ties everything together quite nicely. All of this, and I almost forgot to mention that the watch is indeed water resistant to a comfortable 100 meters. So the case looks very luxurious, and I think it's a job very well done here as well. So the bracelet then is just as nice here, and once again takes its design cues from Chinese architecture, just like the case. So the center links, for example, mimic the shape of the windows of the pagodas in China. Regarding the finishing, other than the polished bevel I mentioned earlier, the bracelet features pronounced vertical brushing, and it looks, well, great. So the bracelet feels very nice and solid too. Time will tell, of course, how it holds up. The clasp is also noteworthy here. It feels super solid, and it features a very easy to use micro adjustment system. So you essentially just have to press the logo on the clasp, which is in fact a button, which then allows you to resize the bracelet to loosen or tighten the fit. I always appreciate having such a feature on a bracelet, so especially during the hot summer months, and this added mechanism does of course add a little bit of thickness to the clasp. Now looking at the caseback, which is interesting as it is only semi-see-through here, you see the depiction of a stone guardian lion. Now through this semi-display caseback we get a glimpse of the customized extra thin movement. The movement, as you would expect, is indeed also made in China. So the base caliber has received modifications, including a slimmer profile, improved accuracy for ±10 seconds a day, and a slightly longer power reserve up to 41 hours from the standard 38 hours. Still not crazy long, but any improvement here is welcome, of course. Critical when talking about these more exotic type of movements is, of course, whether they can be serviced easily afterwards. You know, do they require to be shipped back to the other side of the planet? For some of us, each time you need something done. Well, I have double-checked with Atelier Wen and they have confirmed they now have multiple locations that can cover this. So currently both France and Singapore have been set up, with North America currently under investigation. So to me, this is a massive upgrade to the customer experience. On the wrist then, well, it wears excellent. With its 40mm diameter and the thinness of the case, it will wear great on pretty much any wrist, and it immediately put a smile on my face when I put it on the wrist here. I cannot stress enough how much I like the thinness of the overall watch. It really makes this a joy to wear. Now you can perfectly wear this to the office as you could on the beach, for example. So to conclude, you can potentially, well, go anywhere and do anything with the Perception. It could even be your, yes, one watch collection. Now, Atelier Wen proudly states it wants to celebrate Chinese culture and craftsmanship, and I have to say that this is a celebration done right.